the first game of my sophomore season, and y'all see it that number one is now on my back. And not only because I'm the number one corner, but because I am the one who's going to show up and show out this season. I'm about to prove something. And after what I would consider a historically great freshman season, I'm looking to have an even bigger one this year. And like I said from day one, my standards for myself and this team are very high, and I've kind of stepped into a leadership role. Important part of being the leader is leading by example, and there's no better example for my defense, but especially my DBs, than catching a pick and taking it back to the crib. Week 1, we dominate New Mexico, but I put a cap on this game late in the fourth with another pick, my second of the game. We put them boys up out of there. The level of patience and skill it takes to track a receiver all around the end zone like this is crazy. When you find another corner with this type of IQ, please let me know. I'm that guy, bro. I'm him. If I gotta tell you again, I might have to do you how Tank did Garcia, bro. A diving one-handed pick? I'm like that. I might be a young corner myself, but I have a lot of younger high school DBs asking me for tips on how to be a shutdown/ball hawking DB. But I tell them straight up, everybody can't be elite at the position like I am, but if you got a little bit of dog in you, I can teach you something. But if I had to take everything into account and kind of break it down into somewhat of a Breon Parker science, it'll be something like this. But before I go into detail, take a look at this. 18 seconds left in the fourth, obvious passing situation. I read it like a book, play the route down to a T, and I get the pick. It's real simple, breaking it down to 3 core elements I like to call PPT, which stands for positioning, patience, and timing. Now the positioning, where you're lined up pre-snap and when you end up post-snap, depending on where you're in zone, man, or whatever, and what formation the offense is in. Now the patience is very important. You want to give that quarterback and that receiver a look that is too good to be true, and at a moment's notice, as soon as the ball is thrown, then you hop in your opportunity. Now the patience and timing, they go hand in hand. You have to have the patience to let things develop, but you also have to time the routes perfectly so you know when to jump the route and pick that ball off. And it's as simple as that. And if all my young DBs can apply those 3 things to their game effectively, they can be great one day. Not as great as me, but they can be better than what they are now. One thing I need my youngest to understand as well is that you're not going to be perfect. Even I mess up, and I'm nearly perfect myself, but it's about how you respond to those mistakes that make you. Recently, I've been bumping heads with my DB coach over something he sees to be so important that I just don't. And that's studying film, probably the most overrated thing you can do as a DB, not only as a DB or a corner, but just a player in general. How I see it, if you have to binge watch and study your opponent, maybe you lack something physically or mentally that's keeping you from being as great as somebody like me. For me, when I see something on the field, I can pick up on it, adjust, and react to it in real time on the field in that moment. But I get it though, coming across a player that's as gifted with the level of IQ that I possess, the level of skill that I have, it's unheard of. And then he started telling me about this kid from Ole Miss, saying he's a ball hawking corner, he's better than me, he has higher IQ, he's a film junkie. Like, what? Some kid named Nick Sabaga. Now, I ain't never heard of him, but people are saying he's supposed to be one of the top picks in the draft, so he might be decent. Oregon State, easily one of my favorite teams to play in college football, simply because they have a pass-heavy offense, which means more opportunities through the air. And when there's opportunity, nobody's going to capitalize off of it like I am, and that's a guarantee. While my coach was practically forcing me to watch film, I noticed something. They love to run a bunch of hitches, comebacks, and out routes, and I know exactly how to bait those to make the big play. And little did anyone know it was about to be a very interesting second half from your boy BP. I'm practically living in these boys' playbook. This is easily one of the most instinctive picks I've ever caught in my career. I'm sitting off my zone, reading the quarterback's eyes, reading the field, and before I know it, the ball was in my hands. It came so natural. And like I said, they love these short routes. You combine that with a trigger-happy quarterback and you're gonna get pick sixes from the best cornerback in college football. As of lately, one of my teammates who will go unnamed has been kind of off a little bit. Missing practices, late to team meetings, just completely off, throwing off this team as a whole. Now, usually, I don't worry about nobody else but my own greatness. But as a team captain, I guess right now I gotta be a little less selfish. So one day, during a team meeting, after he showed up late yet again, I asked him straight up in front of everybody, "Bro, what's up? Are you really with us? Cause you showing up late or not showing up at all, and it's really being a problem. You either with us or you're not. And if you're not, you need to get up out of here." And he ain't say nothing. His face just went blank and he just kind of stood there, just stared at me with this dark look for about 10 seconds. I take a step closer and I tell him straight up, "If you can't stand the heat, little bro, get out the kitchen. We trying to win, and if you get in the way of that, you gonna get clipped straight up." Next thing I know, I wake up and all my teammates just standing over me with a look of shock on their face. Then they help me up off the ground. And then I ask them, "What happened?" Then they tell me straight up, he hit me so fast, nobody expected it. And after he had already knocked me out, he just went to beating on me. So at this point, I'm mad, but confused at the same time. I know I said what I said, but at the same time, it was the facts. I'm looking for him. I'm trying to figure out where he at because ain't nobody finna embarrass me like that in front of my team. So I'm like, what dorm is he in? Where is he at right now? So later on, I find out what dorm he in. I pull up and I get to banging on his door. I have nothing but bad intentions for this guy. I knock for about 5 minutes straight and then get no answer. So I end up walking down by the bathroom, hoping I would catch him slipping at some point. So while waiting down by the bathroom, I hear a voice inside that sounds very similar to his. And in the voice I hear in the bathroom, they're on the phone asking somebody to please leave him alone, let him go, saying he'll have their money and some other stuff. And after a few minutes, guess who walks out the stall? My teammate, who just so happens to put on his best Mike Tyson impersonation on me. So before I just went to throwing hands, I wanted an explanation. And I asked him, why did you just go crazy like that even though the situation wasn't that deep? And he stands there, stares with a blank stare. So I kind of step back and kind of put myself in a position to be ready for whatever he tried to do. But this time it's not a look of anger, it's sadness. And unexpectedly, he breaks out into a full-blown cry. And the waves of his voice was so loud, it was so much pain, it shook the bathroom. And for the first time in my life, I felt bad for somebody. I didn't know the full details of the situation, but I felt something in my heart that I ain't never felt before. He went back to his dorm room and he explained to me that he grew up in a very tough neighborhood back in Jacksonville, Florida, and his little brother had fallen victim to the streets. And he explained to me, one of the friends he grew up with feel like he left them all behind once he came here to Stanford. So they got his little brother in the streets carrying guns, selling drugs, all type of crazy things. And he's been begging his old friends to kind of push his brother away from that life, turn him away from the streets, but they won't do it unless he comes up with some money. And I asked him, how much do they want? And he told me $50K. And bro, I almost laughed, like $50K, that's nothing, like you should have been paid them. And then he put the situation into a different perspective that I wasn't familiar with because I had never had to deal with anything like this due to me being so fortunate. And when he broke it down and explained their childhood, how they would be hungry sometimes, he didn't have both parents, they were just less fortunate. In his neighborhood, he described it was like a war zone. And for a minute, I just sat there in silence, trying to comprehend and wrap my mind around what it would actually feel like to live a life like that. And in that very moment, all of the anger and malice I had in my mind and in my heart towards my teammate had evaporated, and I had nothing but the utmost respect for him. The next day, I went to the bank and withdrew that $50K. Met up with my boy, gave it to him, told him to go save his brother's life. The look of peace and appreciation in his eyes, priceless. Being able to help someone that may seem minor to me, but considered astronomical to someone else, it felt amazing. And ever since we resolved that situation, he's been back in practices, all the team meetings, he's bounced back as a whole. With so much going on, including that situation, my focus has kind of been shifted away from football, which is crazy because I've been so locked in. Don't get me wrong, on the field, I'm still balling per usual, still establishing myself to be the best cornerback in college football, but off the field, I've been doing a little bit of soul searching. But for right now, I got to put that on pause and recenter my focus back on the team because we're close to closing out a very successful season. Last year, this Cal team record-wise was horrible. This year, they're ranked number 19 in the country at 7-3. And if I said I wasn't bitter about the L that they handed us last season, I'd be lying. I'm hoping we come out and play some of our best football this season against this team. But one thing I know about this Cal quarterback, he fears me. He knows I'm hot. If he tries to throw anything big my way, he knows and everybody knows it's going to get snatched up. But when teams and quarterbacks try to avoid me, my teammates will see more opportunity. And it's on them to make the big play and execute. So since they want to avoid putting the ball in the air my way and they're trying to run these sneaky quick routes, I'm laying everything out that come my way. It's late in the fourth quarter and we got this game pretty much wrapped up. But when I said my teammates need to capitalize on those opportunities, that's exactly how we end this game, perfectly. We're ranked number 11, just outside the top 10, but when it comes to our conference and division, we're number 1 in both. So finishing this season flawless is crucial. Even though our national championship hopes are out the window, we still want to finish on top where it matters. But I've been thinking with the huge leap we've taken from last season to this season, I can only imagine what my junior year is going to look like for this team. The defense has gotten better and our offense is way more consistent than last season. We're just going to continue to build on that momentum. To my surprise, even with a 9-1 record, Army hung with us throughout this entire game, making it a shootout. But in the end, offense kept putting up points, and even though we didn't play as well as we should have, the defense got the stops that mattered to win the game. My pops called me the other day, which is kind of unusual. I mean, we talk, but not as frequently and as consistently as you think that a father and son would. But not for obvious reasons. He's usually traveling at 1,000 miles per hour, trying to make different business plans, handling business, being a boss, just doing this thing. And on my end, I'm always busy as well, maintaining my 4.0 GPA, locked in with my craft on the field to maintain my dominance. So when we're both not busy and actually have time to talk, we always have a lot to catch up on. And to my surprise, he started this phone call off with something I thought I'd never in my life hear him say to me. And it was an awkward silence for about 30 seconds. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was confused, actually. Then I finally asked him, what made you say that? That was just so random, and honestly, Pops, I never thought I'd hear you say that to me. He told me, son, you really think you can move $50,000 of my money without me noticing? Even though it's your account, I have access to it all. And then I thought, yeah, that makes sense. But then again, I'm still confused on what I did exactly to make him proud. Come to find out, after I withdrew the $50K, he had a PI follow me to make sure I wasn't in any trouble that I couldn't handle. Don't ask me how, he knew exactly what I needed the money for. He found out where and who the money went to, he got it back, and he gave it to my teammate's mom. It made sense when my pops was proud. I had finally grew out of my cocky, arrogant, selfish ways and did something for someone else. I finally grew into a man. One word to describe my sophomore season here at Stanford: historical. But by this time next year, the only word I want to describe my junior year: champions.